Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for another round of Master Phil in your corner with your host, Master Phil.
All right. Well, how's everyone doing today? Master Phil here with Master Phil in your corner with my partner in crime here, Dougie Fresh Friedman, out of the Undefeated Media Studios. And this broadcast is brought to you by the Bell Method. Get your certification online or in person. We're having an in-person level 2 certification on May 2nd in Waldwick that will also be available virtually through the Ubiquifit site. And you can find all this information out on the bodybellmethod.com, actually bodybellmethod.com. And we also have Master Phil Industries where you can view all of our offerings at philross.com. We have virtual training, we have online classes, we have downloadable PDFs, we have our personal classes in person, actually, in Waldwick, and also at the Master Phil Industries headquarters. And we do travel for seminars and workshops. There are books, and we also have a link to Dragon Door products, and that's for kettlebells, books, ISO chains, all kinds of equipment. And speaking of Dragon Door, we're going to have a very special guest today, very good friend of mine. And this gentleman established Dragon Door Publications in 1991. And he was responsible, or is responsible, for the kettlebell movement in the U.S. And he introduced the certifications in 2001. And, a lot has changed in the kettlebell industry. Actually, a lot has changed in the fitness industry because of kettlebells in this country in the past 2 decades. And this man is the one responsible for bringing kettlebells to the forefront in the U.S. It gives me great pleasure to introduce a good friend of mine, the owner of Dragon Door Publications, John Ducane.
Hey, Phil. Great to see you. Great to talk with you.
Always a pleasure, JDC. So, we were talking about the kettlebell movement. I'd love to have you share with the audience, how we really got started in this. Because, if you look back at some pictures of old gymnasiums, you'll see they have some kettlebells in them. Look back in the early 1900s in these gymnasiums where, they were different than the gyms are today, obviously. But, you see there's a couple kettlebells here and there, and it was used. But for some reason, it never caught on in this country until you. So, and that's actually how we met, because once I got my hands on that kettlebell and I just saw how much it could help and how great I felt after using them, I just knew I had to get involved.
So there's a great story. I mean, it started really back in about 1995 when I was teaching Qigong at a open university type of situation, and there was a very charismatic Russian guy there in his early 20s, well, maybe mid 20s, called Pavel Tsatsouline, who had escaped Russia. He got in under the Gorbachev agreement, he was like a refugee, really. And he was given asylum over here, came to Minnesota family, and he established himself as a trainer in St. Paul. And he was, he was very young, but exceptionally bright. And he had spent, after getting out of college in Russia, according to what he told me, he had spent, I think it was probably a couple of years max, as a strength and conditioning trainer for a special forces, a Spetsnaz unit in northern Russia. He was lucky enough to get out. He came from a strong military background. He had a tremendous kind of ability to communicate in a highly accessible manner. So I showed up at a flexibility workshop and was going to be told how the Americans had it all wrong about flexibility training, and the Russians were going to show you how, and we all had Body by Stalin T-shirts on, and he was rocking it. You know, there were young ballerinas in there. There were sort of scarred, aging veterans. There were moms and pops, and it was very crowded. And I thought, wow, this guy really has something. So I went up to him straight after that first workshop. He had like a few stick drawings and nothing much else. And I said, hey, would you like to be published? I think I could do something for you here. And we hit it off right away. So, you know, I did a stretching book with him, and it immediately got attention. And he just had a way to you know, charismatic way about him, and an ability to write that was exceptional, despite English being his second language. And then he studied some Qigong with me. I showed him some iron shirt techniques in particular, with sort of isometric tension generation, and some extra light bulbs went off for him. And he wrote and came out with Power to the People that was became a kind of great classic in strength training. So between Pavel and myself, you know, Pavel was building a reputation thanks to myself and Dragon Door, and to his own abilities as a very respected strength coach and author. And then about 97, 98, in 98, he wrote an article called Vodka, Pickle Juice, Kettlebells, and Other Russian Pastimes. Yeah. And that was in a magazine called Milo, run by Iron Mind. And it got attention from, you know, a lot of the heavy lifters and strongmen who...
Could you run back on something at Milo? Many people don't know the Milo reference and why that's important.
Yeah, Milo is like an iconic strength magazine produced by Dr. Strawson, who was an avid powerlifter and actually wrote a tremendous book on squats that I think remains a revered text. And they marketed to people who are looking to be exceptionally strong, in particular powerlifters, but everything, you know, grip training, what have you. And Milo, the magazine, was highly regarded. You know, a lot of really, really good articles, and it was kind of very influential because it was hitting people who were really in the know. So Pavel wrote this article, talked about kettlebells, and then it sparked a lot of interest. There were people trying to make them on their own. And Pavel came to me. He noticed what was going on. He said, you know, do you think we can do anything with kettlebells in America? And Iron Mind actually was selling an adjustable kettlebell, and I ordered it, looked at it, said, you know, this just didn't feel very good, and nothing else was going on. So I said, yeah, and a friend of Pavel's, who was a hockey player, had brought over some kettlebells from Russia, and they were the old style Russian kettlebells that were hollow inside, big, bulky things that you'd fill with weight. And at my suggestion, I said, Pavel, let's make our own design. You know, we came out, with the 24 kilo was the same size. So we were the first people to come out with that 16 kilo size, which Russian guys were going, oh, what's this? So we we did the 32, the standard sizes, 16, 24, 32 are the ones that Pavel had trained with. He had trained with kettlebells while he was with the Special Forces. And so we made kettlebells. We organized, designed, and made them in Minnesota at a local foundry. And then Pavel wrote a book. We did a video. And then I had been director of the certification board for drug and alcohol counselors in Minnesota. And part of what I saw work there was drug addicts. A lot of the counselors were, or pretty well all of them were recovering alcoholics or drug addicts. So they didn't necessarily have a lot of credibility. Like, who are you to, other than being an experienced drug addict, you know, what do you got going for you? Yeah. So they formed their own certification board and kind of anointed themselves as the authorities. in addiction counseling. So I said, Pavel, if we're going to succeed fully with kettlebells in this country, we should really have a certification system in place, because then we were anointing ourselves as we're it, which we were. But, you know, you have the certification, and there was no certification in the world, in any country, on kettlebells. So we did literally start the first ever certification. And the success of kettlebells initially, I attribute to a number of factors. One is that there'd been no vision. The reason kettlebells had kind of gone out of favor was because no one had ever come out with any kind of a training resource that inspired people and gave people an understanding of what you could do with them, really. I mean, swings existed back in the day. Right. Strong men used to use them for, you know, strong displays, strength displays. But when it came down to it, there was nothing out there. There was not a single book or a single video, let alone trainings on how to use them. So Pavel was a very charismatic guy, hugely articulate, and he gave people, you know, I was very excited. One of the best books we ever did, and of course, immensely influential, was the Russian Kettlebell Challenge, which came out that year, 2001. Very iconic. And Pavel had kind of basically, he'd incorporated what he had learned, but he also used like a school of strength system to optimimise kettlebells as an effective strength and conditioning tool.
Yes, you hit the nail on the head, and that's one of the things that I saw was different. Was there was a system put in place for kettlebells. Prior to that, there was no system in place.
None.
So I mean, you know, so people had no idea what to do with this thing.
Right. So he, you know, the system was there. The certification, you know, the first one in September 2001. You know, just to think, it must have been just after 9/11. So around the same time, there's like 16 people there. I think 4 or 5 of them started their own certs down the road. Or, you know, there was some very influential people straight out of the bat. And then, you know, so one of the things that's influential is, yes, the system was there. And then the kettlebell, that people were tired of machines. They were tired of aerobics. They were tired of just powerlifting or Olympic lifting. And the beauty of the kettlebell was you could do pretty well everything you wanted to be really strong and really conditioned, hit harder, kick harder, grab harder, have better shape, be, you know, functionally better with this single tool. So it was very, very good timing. And there's something very sexy about the kettlebell. You know, it's this kind of black hunk of iron with a handle, and you can, you know, you look great doing it. And, you know, to our surprise, women actually became a very big part of the market. We thought it was going to just be the rough and tough LEO crowd and special forces and strongmen. But again, you know, I give a lot of credit to Pavel. He's a great listener. You know, he listened. What I saw him as the certification developed was very organic. You know, we started out with a 2-day event, which was very much trial and error. There was no snatch test in place. You could get certified without a strength test. And he just listened and listened and listened, and over time developed this very, very solid system. And I think that it's just, you know, flat out, I've heard critiques of, you know, oh, you know, it's not as good as Juravoy's system of lifting, or it's not this, it's not that. But the bottom line, as we've seen, is that kettlebells and the hardstyle system of learning to play with the kind of the mix of tension and relaxation, that's the hallmark of a great athlete, is the ability to master relaxation and tension. Sorry.
Oh no, yeah, no. You bring up you brought up hard style. So many people don't know the difference between a hard style sport or something. If we could talk about that a little bit, because the whole tension relaxation and that translation to sport and life, to me, was very attractive. to using our style of kettlebells. But now, when you're talking about some of these other systems that are not hard style, so what other systems are there out there that that don't quite use this methodology that we employ?
And as you would well know, Phil, like, hard style and soft style traditionally distinguished like karate, taekwondo from, say, Tai Chi or certain types of kung fu. Like, there's martial arts which favored a little bit more of a linear approach, a little more obvious use of direct force. And that was hard style. It's like, see that wall, go through it. And then you've got the Tai Chi Aikido kind of camp, which is see that wall, go around it. And then, deal with the person on the other side. And both have their virtues. Tai Chi Aikido use the adversary's energy against them more. There's more circular movement. There's a type of softness, but it's a softness that's in a whip until the moment of striking. And in boxing and most martial arts, frankly, it's mostly very relaxed until it's not. But it made sense. Like, Pavel is definitely in the, he was involved with Okinawan karate and with very heavy duty kind of approach to, that end of martial arts, definitely hard style approach. So I think that the name hard style has a ring to it, on a marketing level as much as anything. I called the Dragon Door magazine was called Hard Style. Right. And then it really started to be something that people latched onto. It was like people liked to call what we were doing hard style. And certainly there were methods in the school of strength that's kind of associated with the word hard style. There are methods to encourage very high tension, like there's isometrics involved, there's that explosive tension. At the moment of explosion, there's the use of tension. So, and then there's the Valsalva maneuver when you're doing the heavy exhale on a certain movement. So it did kind of align with particularly your kind of philosophy, power. A lot of the people who were attracted initially came in with that kind of bias or preference. So that's hard style. I mean, hard style, like a lot of monikers, covers a lot of different methods finally, and it's not as simple as it sounds. It does. I think some people think because of the name that it's just somehow tension oriented, when of course it's not. It's knowing how to use tension properly along with supreme relaxation. Yes. But that's the birth. And I think the other thing, the what the hell effect, what was remarkable about kettlebells was it just flat out worked. If this was some kind of weird marketing scam or fad, or it would have gone away pretty quickly. It has not gone away, very far from it. It's, in fact, in the pandemic, you could see people rushing to buy and have kettlebells at home so they could train, because it was like the perfect at-home training tool. So, the proof is in the pudding. Everyone and their mother and brother and athletes, people who are just looking to condition themselves, lose weight, found that kettlebells flat out work. So there's a reason why people have kettlebell only facilities. That they can exist as trainers teaching pretty well nothing else. So, I think those are the factors behind its popularity. You got the vision, you got the understanding of why they work, and then people get the results.
Yep. So I mean, it's result driven. I mean, you do get results, incredible results. I mean, the other things that a lot of people don't understand also is that your mobility and your flexibility improves incredibly. A lot of people understand that you can get a really very good cardiovascular workout with these as well. Yeah. But the mobility aspects, I mean, I think are underrated until you start doing it. You start doing your arm bars, your get-ups and things like that. I mean, you get incredible mobility and actually stability also in your joints. Now, you brought up the pandemic. I mean, Obviously, I don't think too many podcasts or even discussions go without speaking about the pandemic in some realm. And what were some of the positive things that happened to Dragon Door during the pandemic?
Well, the most obvious thing was that people were no longer able to go to the gyms to train with kettlebells at the gym. I think most people, there are a lot of consumers didn't necessarily have kettlebells at their own place and at their home. They were relying on just going to the trainer's facility. So, what did happen was the demand for kettlebells went nuts. And because of the pandemic, the factories in China and elsewhere were not able to keep up. There was a massive shortage. We sold out everything very, very fast. Unfortunately, we do have a wonderful vendor in China, and we were able to get, a reasonable amount of kettlebells in. So Dragon Door, ironically, in that part of our business, did very well. We did, and on top of that, we can get into it later, the ISA chain was just starting to kick in. And that, again, is like a fabulous device for training at home. So, we did very well. Dragon Door's business model is threefold. It's got equipment that it manufactures. You cannot succeed selling equipment, really, unless you have very good information to back it up and charismatic people to put the vision out for it. So, and that's what happened with the kettlebells. We had the right leadership. We had the right authors. We had the right tools to make it exciting and for it to be a success. And the same thing's happening with the ISA chain. That's, so there's the information, there's the equipment, and then there's the in-person workshops. So naturally, with the pandemic, one of the most disastrous aspects by a long way is that we couldn't have in-person workshops. And as a martial artist, Bill, and as a trainer for a long time, is that, you can do Zoom calls up the wazoo, you can do online training, but if you're involved in learning movement, you need to have someone in person. I really believe that. You can go, a fair way with corrections online, and, it's wonderful to have online training, but, to me, there's nothing ever beats in-person training. It's just special in its own way. So we took it, it really, so that's hugely unfortunate. Everyone has their own opinion about how it was or wasn't handled correctly by the authorities nationally or in each state. But the bottom line was people couldn't train together. And, that, of course, hit Dragon Door extremely hard, like anyone who's offering workshops. So that was, workshops essentially went away. And what, Dragon Door had developed some online training with the hard style fit sort of courses. We've also got an ISA chain video course. What we actually didn't do that we could have done was start setting up a lot of online Zoom training officially from Dragon Door. We thought about it and we decided not to. We just allowed the RKCs to go ahead and promote themselves through their own programs. I don't know whether we made the right decision, but we allowed them kind of free reign. And, again, people have been a lot of our instructors have been extremely successful from everything I've heard. They've often hardly lost any of their clients. They've just switched to Zoom trainings, and it's worked. It looks like we're finally coming out of it. We'll see. That those people, I know. There's so many variables that, but we're having. We've got one certification coming up in New York, and we've got 50 registrants, which is not bad at all. And that's going to be, held outside if the weather permits. And so I think we're seeing people starting to sign up again, register, and kind of showing interest in and feeling safe for now with going back to training in person.
We have a question from
yes, we do.
James Delasio, and he's asked, "What are the best types?"
I got you. Can you see it?
Oh, yeah,
I
can see. Yeah.
Okay. What are the best types and weights of kettlebells to start training? I mean, I could take it, but John, we got you as the guest. Run with it. And so, well, first of all, you have to get Dragon Door RKC Dragon Door bells. That's number one.
Of course.
Available at philruss.com.
Yeah. So I think, this is a very open-ended question. Best type of kettlebell, certainly I think Phil and I are on the same wavelength there, is that you want, that we think that the type of kettlebell we've always produced, which is not hollow and which is very dense and comes in a lot of different sizes depending on who you are and how old you are, what you're looking for, what gender you are, that our type of kettlebell will work best rather than the Girovoy Sport type of large kettlebell. Best weights to use, again, very open-ended. I mean, it's if you're a lady and you're not in the greatest shape, by all means, start with an 8 kilo, 10 kilo, 12 kilo. There are smaller weights, but usually, again, the king of the drills is the swing. Most people can get going right away, whoever they are, with an 8 or 10 kilo kettlebell. They do need good instruction. If you're a man and you're in good shape already, then the 16 makes sense. You can squat with heavier kettlebells, but those weights are good function. Good form is most important with kettlebells. The thing to remember when you start training is start relatively light until your form is good. And where do you learn good form? From a trained instructor. And nothing, again, if you can, in person is best. You can get feedback online, but just ramp up as you are. Your trainer tells you you're ready to, and that your form is good enough to handle the heavier weights.
The one thing that thank you, John. One thing that I want to stress here is that you're speaking to instruction and form. Because kettlebell, I love the kettlebell, and it's my favorite, hands down, modality of training. No matter what, if I have my kettlebells, I'm happy.
Yeah.
But without proper instruction, without proper form, you're going to get hurt. And you're not going to get the results you want.
Totally.
I've seen a lot of garbage out there. I've seen a lot of garbage online. I've seen some horrible form, and then you get these stories. Oh gosh, kettlebells are no good. I hurt my back, or I wrecked my shoulder. I wrecked my knee. Or even to the fact that if you're not using it properly, you're not going to get the full benefit out of the kettlebell. Yeah. So it's the training methodology, the system behind it is incredibly important. If not, it's even more important than the tool itself. Although I will say, and I can say this because I don't own Dragon Door, I don't produce these kettlebells, but I love our kettlebells so much more than the other ones. Even the ones that are, most of them are less expensive, but you know what, you get what you pay for. You look at the finishes. Our coating is great. The contour of the handles, the way that our handles are nice and smooth. The craftsmanship put into the bells. Like I have some other bells that we didn't have the size. I got some large ones. I mean, they're okay. They weren't that much less, but the workmanship is not even close to what we have. I mean, the bottoms, they don't sit right there. They wobble on my rack and so forth. There's a definite difference in the bell. So you know what, if we're like 10, 20% more, so what? You're going to have this thing forever, and you're not going to have to worry about it.
Yeah, I've been to obviously to China many times and visited the factories, and some of the factories we've seen, warehouses where there are competitors' bells made in a slightly different way. And we've actually had like one of our original manufacturers say, "You sure you don't want to come out with a cheaper bell?" And we always insisted, no, we want to be known for the very best quality out there. And we're the only people we do a double E-coat process. No one else wants to pay that extra money to have that quality of covering. I've seen our top competitors in factories over there, and they just don't want to go that extra level. They don't care. We do care, and as you said, this is something that you're going to use for year after year after year. And it's pennies, really, when it comes down to it. And it's, to my mind, clearly worth having the best if you're going to use it this way.
So, now getting back to the COVID situation.
Yeah.
So now, what changes did you implement, and then what do you see moving forward, and how do you see, going 2021, 2022? What do you, I know it's kind of tough, but hey, you know what? All questions can't be easy.
Yeah. I mean, I don't feel that I'm necessarily a great predictor about that. But first of all, I think from what I'm hearing, and I may be wrong, we're going to go through a very big financial boom shortly. There's going to be an explosion financially. I may be wrong, but that's what I'm thinking is going to happen. So I think there's going to be there's a lot of pent-up demand. There's a lot of people wanting to spend money they haven't been able to spend. There's a lot of what people normally spend, money on vacations, on this and that, which they haven't been able to do. So I'm expecting personally for the economy to be pretty robust over the next year or two. Anything, something can happen, and I'll be proved very horribly wrong. But that's my expectation. I'm expecting that within a few months that the training world is going to shift. I think the online training is still going to be a major component. There's going to be a lot more interactive training that's going to be happening. There's a lot of very interesting technology. I'm not a techie guy, but there's clearly a lot of people who are interested in some of the latest interactive technology, which they're going to not necessarily use a trainer for. So that's happening. But I am expecting to see in-person training coming back pretty strongly in the next couple of years. I'm very hopeful about that.
Yeah, it's of course we're all hopeful, but one of the things that I do see is that this virtual training is not going away.
No,
and I think it's going to be an enhancement, and used properly, it's just going to grow fitness, because you know what? If you look at it right now, 80% of the people in this country do not meet the minimum amounts of fitness. So guess what? If we can capture even part of that 80% margin, that's going to be a huge boon. And if you look at it right now, you see that the people most adversely affected by this COVID-19 are who? People who are obese, people who are unhealthy. And heck, you know what? What is the best tool to get strong and healthy? It's the kettlebell.
Right.
So, and if we have to do that virtually or in person, I'm for it. I'm here because I want people to live better longer.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the best way to do it is through a kettlebell. Talking about living better longer, you're in pretty darn good shape. So, people don't know you. I know you, and I know you're in some incredible shape. So, what are some of the things that you do to keep yourself fit, and how do you challenge yourself?
Yeah, very, very good. I mean, I think that I've been a lifelong athlete. Not a professional athlete, but I represented my school and college in track and in rugby, and have all of that. I was attracted to weightlifting as a teenager. I started doing yoga as a teenager. I went to an ashram in India where I learned dynamic forms of meditation and Qigong and Tai Chi. I'm not someone who easily picks up movement, but I saw there's a great book called Go Wild, where the authors talk about how our brains actually are designed and are as big as they are to handle our ability to move. That of all animals on the planet, we are by far the most skilled in movement, but it takes a very big brain. So varied movement is actually kind of wired in. The need for varied movement is wired into us. So as a martial artist, you and I both understand that varied movement is really tremendous for mental stability, emotional stability, spiritual growth, you name it, as well as the physical. So for me, challenging myself, I think, to maintain vigor and vitality, I come from this kind of Taoist perspective of treating yourself, cultivating yourself as a work of art, an ongoing work of art, that you have a vision to remain vital and vigorous as long as I possibly can. And that means taking up, constantly challenging yourself with the type of movement that you learn. So, I've embarked on a lot of different martial arts. I'm always trying new weapons, new learning approaches. I'm now playing also with a lot of the isometrics. For me, challenging myself on a regular basis is very important, and also being extremely consistent. Like, I do Qigong and Tai Chi every day. I mean, once in a blue moon I'll miss, but it's like a bedrock. I do kettlebells about 4 or 5 times a week. I do body weight exercise. I do some isometrics. I'm also doing a lot of social dance right now. Bachata is a Dominican, originated in the Dominican Republic. I was doing Brazilian Zouk, and there's the guy who developed the whole analysis of diagnosis of PTSD. Is a Dutch psychiatrist rather, was asked recently, what do you think actually helps those suffering from trauma, vets and so on, most? And he said, well, forget talk therapy. The best thing you can do is social movement. So moving around with others in a relatively complex way is as good a thing as you can do for your overall vigor and vitality and mental health. So, that's, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's funny. I recently was asked to do a presentation to the college on mental health. Mm-hmm. And, as opposed to someone going and being on SSRIs, I did a presentation on exercise and proper nutrition, movement, getting out in nature. Yes. And some of the information that I got was, you'd enjoy this book called The Aging Brain. And a lot of the information, what you're speaking to right now, is in that book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think that's what I've had my ups and downs, as most humans, in my life, of challenges where I've been less healthy for one reason or another. But overall, it's that I think that variety and moving a lot, and the older you get, the more you need to move around, no question. Yes. And then being, not killing yourself. When you're younger, you can get away with a lot more. That I'm actually fairly reasonable in the demands I make on myself. The important thing for me is being very persistent, very consistent with regular practice.
Yeah, that's one thing that I try to put forth, is being consistent, because Doug knows that, no matter what, every day. Actually, I did add something to that, though. Remember, we have to edit this. All right. Remember, squats are first. That every morning, no matter what, I do my squats. I do some stretching first, but I do squats, push-ups, sit-ups, and then I've incorporated in, of course, bridges, and then I incorporated in the single leg deadlift with no weight, and then I do my neck exercises. So I do those every day, okay? And then I throw in these things if I'm not doing like a regular hardcore workout that day, and even I throw this in anyway too. I'll do these little exercise snacks.
Yeah, I love that expression. Yeah, I'm a big exercise snack fan. Yeah.
Yeah, great. I mean, look, you're sitting there. I have 2 uneven kettlebells right by not far from my desk. I'll bang out 10 swings one way, switch them, 10 swings the other way. Goblet squats, 10. I'll use the Neuro grip push-ups. I love those. Bang out, 30, 40 of those. And then I'll do the ab wheel. And then I'll go back to work.
Yeah. No, I totally get that. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, just before doing this talk with you, I was banging out some swings, about already, like, I think about 100 swings, 3 different sizes, broken up into 30 or 40, 50 reps.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And yeah, it's just, I'm a big believer in exercise snacks.
Yeah, and it keeps the blood flowing because one of the things that we are missing in today's society, if you take a snapshot now and a snapshot of people 50, 60 years ago, people were very physical in their day.
Yeah,
they did a lot of perform what we call NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So they were always moving, picking things up, going from here to there, physically walking, carrying, lifting. What do we do now? We lift a snack up to our mouth and sit on our butts. I mean, and the thing is, people go from sitting, and then they come home and they sit, and then they go somewhere else and they sit, and then put a lockdown on that. Like I've said, this COVID-19 has often resulted in the COVID-20 or more. Just start pounding on, putting the pounds on because we're not moving enough. People don't move enough.
I totally agree. Yeah.
And I mean, you're a testament to that because you are consistent. I mean, you're in your proper weight class, right? And you're constant and you move on a regular basis. And what this does for your mind as well, helps keep you sharp.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
And that's, you have increased blood flow, and people also don't understand that, the more that you push your system, the more capillaries you will actually grow. You'll actually develop more capillaries. And people don't talk about that. But,
movement creates more neural pathways in the brain.
Absolutely.
Challenging movement.
Especially like what you said, when you challenge, you learn new patterns.
Yeah. And I like to, I'd throw in a quick plug for cryotherapy. I'm a big, I did publish a book with Wim Hof called The Way of the Iceman.
Yes.
And again, what's interesting about Wim is I'd heard about ice training, of course, forever from Vladimir Vasilyev when I met with him in the Arnold back in like 2004. And I could see there was a lot of interest in it. And it was like, cold showers are great. Everyone will plunge into the ice. But no one had really come out with an inspiring vision about just the extent to which ice therapy can help. And cold shock therapy, what I like about Wim is that he kind of went into the real science of it. And you were talking about, the capillaries being developed. One of the things that happens that blew my mind with cold shock therapy is that one of the hardest type of muscles to exercise are the muscles within the veins. How do you get those to not get weaker as you get older? Well, what happens with cold shock therapy is those hundreds of miles of muscles within the veins constrict and then relax, and they start to get exercise just from reacting to the sudden shock. So one of the beauties of cold shock therapy, and this always excites me when I see that, I understand that kind of understanding, is that your circulation improves. You're less likely to have a heart attack. You're improving in a way that there's hardly any other type of exercise that's going to impact those muscles within the veins. Who knew, on a certain level? So when I get an understanding of that kind, then I'm in,
Yes.
Cold shock therapy helps generate brown fat. Do you know what brown fat is? You better. It's an extremely valuable fat to cultivate through one form or another. Cold shock therapy will do it. So I think that you and I are both on the same page in terms of looking for ways to help people to keep vital and vigorous. And I've always kind of been looking in my life for those different modalities. I find something. Well, the reason I started Dragon Doors because I get enthusiastic about, very passionate, enthusiastic about health and well-being, and I want to share that naturally. So I started a company that shared it. So shocking the body in those kind of ways. You talked about a lot of it is challenge, so the body has to adapt and strengthen itself naturally. So you can do that. Again, it's like exercise snacks work that way. Cold shock therapy works that way. You only have to do a 2 or 3 minute cold shower in the morning, or if you're lucky, go to a cryotherapy chamber, a couple of minutes, and that's all you need, but it's enough to make a difference.
It's funny, I did not know that about the veins. I do those cold showers. Yeah, it is. I know it's good for me, and I feel invigorated.
But why?
So I do it. Yeah, but why? My wife knows why I yell in the shower. Yeah, and I just do it as part of my training of making myself feel uncomfortable because I never want to be too comfortable.
Right.
So I feel if you're too comfortable, you're complacent.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So you always want to make it a little more difficult. But now, John, do you, what do you have going on right now? Is there a new product or system? I know you got the ISO chain, and that's kind of the latest thing coming out from Dragon Door. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. The ISO, again, this is Paul Wade, who introduced convict conditioning to the world, and I'm single most successful title ever. He's another one of these astonishingly articulate people who just knows how to use language in a way that really gets people excited. And what was great about it was that it was very, very programmatic. And people love to have programs that make sense, that'll take you from A to B to C to D and so on. So convict worked really well that way. What is so exciting about Paul Wade's isometric device is that the problem with isometrics, as everyone has ever practiced it, is that you're told to tense up the muscles in a certain way and you hold, okay? But you don't necessarily have any way to know just how much tension you're truly generating. Grip, there's grip, there's little devices that will show you the amount of grip strength you're gaining. But what the ISO chain does is it allows you with auditory and visual displays to measure exactly the force that you're actually generating. So, as an example, you do a deadlift with the ISO chain, and you're supposed to, the optimal time to do an isometric exercise is 6 seconds, that you're going to get pretty well all the possible benefit you can get in that 6-second hold with maximum tension. Well, when I started using the ISO chain for the deadlift, I'd find, let's say it was registering 350 pounds of force, okay? And then I would go, well, am I actually at full force? And then I would tighten more, and damn, I was up at 385. Yeah. And that happens over and over and over again. So what happens, you realize that actually you don't really have a grasp of what your true tension generation is. So what customers who've been using it have found is that they've made 30, 40, 50% strength gains in a month or two with a lot of their lifting that then carries over into regular lifting because they're recruiting more tension. And that was one of the things Pavel talked about in Power to the People and elsewhere, and it's included in the RK system, is that the ability to generate great tension is the hallmark of a great athlete. Being able to, the more real tension that you're generating, the more strength. And the isometrics device allows people to know exactly what they're really doing. And then the moment you see that, it's like a biofeedback mechanism. You go, oh my God, I'm actually leaving a lot on the table. Yeah. And then you come back and you discover, yep, I can do another 10%, boom. And then you're more in touch with what you can really achieve on a strength level. What's also great, I'm 72 years old, and one of the things that you do need to pay attention to after you get to a certain age is you recover more slowly. You're at more of a risk to injure yourself if you're throwing a lot of heavy weight around. Your joints are perhaps less resilient than they used to be. There's just some factors there. You can do quite a lot to protect yourself. What's nice for the isochain and isometrics in general is it's very protective. It actually can improve your safety for you're less likely to get injured despite high levels of force generation. So as someone who's no longer a spring chicken, it's nice to be able to exercise with tremendous force, generate a lot of extra strength, but at the same time protect the joints, protect the tendons, ligaments. So you're less likely to get injured, and you're more likely to avoid getting injured in the future. So that's, we're very excited. Most people who have used the isochain are talking about it being an absolute game changer. And I see it as the next big thing after kettlebells. It's not as, the downside is probably some people see it's gadgety, and you have to apply yourself intellectually a bit more. You have to get, an understanding of readouts and, there's a few things like that you have to apply yourself to. You don't just pick up an iron ball with a handle and start swinging it.
Kettlebells are sexy. So
exactly, yeah.
Yeah,
so the isochain doesn't have the same immediate sex appeal,
right?
But in terms of, there's something very sexy about discovering you're 20% stronger in the deadlift after 1 month.
Yeah,
and you go, cool. Really? And a lot of it seems unbelievable. And again, it's like you have to try it, and the proof is in the pudding. So that's what we're seeing. We're going through some issues as it develops with the electronic display and so on, but getting it fine-tuned. But yeah, so I'm very excited. And Paul has a team of researchers he's been using, where in the manual that he did with the isochain, there's tremendous science behind an explanation of why it works. And that's what I always look for. I always want that to be there. You need the vision, but you also need the science. For me, I like to be convinced on all fronts. I want to be convinced emotionally, absolutely. But I also want to feel that this is scientifically valid.
Excellent. Oh,
so
it makes for a great system.
Yes. Yeah. So it's a great compliment. You go on doing your bodyweight exercise, which you love, I know, and your kettlebells and whatever other training, but it's just that extra piece.
Excellent. Oh, John, it's always a pleasure speaking with you, and I'm really excited that we were able to get you on here today.
Thank you.
I would, there's so many things to talk about, but I want to save them for another podcast. I want to get people. I want people to know who you are and what you've done. So you have an incredible resume, and you've done some very cool things outside of just the fitness and strength world. But just want to thank you for coming on.
Thank you. Thank you.
Look forward to seeing you another time.
Right. Very cool. Right. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Ready for
I'm ready when you're
ready. All right.
Okay. You're going to give some strength and honor, baby?
Oh, heck yeah, man. Heck yeah.
I'm ready. You waiting for me?
Yeah, waiting for you.
That's another episode of Master Phil in your corner with your host, Master Phil.
Thank you for listening today, everyone, and strength and honor.